Used to prepare Woodbury County's new law enforcement center to open in April, which is 7 months behind schedule. The LEC dominated discussion during tonight's county supervisors meeting. Now, several members of the board did voice their displeasure after last week's LEC authority meeting and raised those concerns tonight. Supervisor Keith Raddick said the delay in opening has really caused them the most damage, as the county is a major investor in the project. Supervisor Mark Nelson is also a member of the LEC Authority, and he offered an update on the fire dampers. The omission of those dampers from the original plans caused a 7-month delay in this project.
And it came up with 38 that we're currently working on. 30 of them are done and installed. We have one hole left to cut and a few more to install and some to hook up, but it's definitely moving in the right direction.
Nelson also talked about some concerns raised by citizens during last week's LEC Authority meeting. Some suggested a possible conflict of interest for LEC Authority Chair Ron Wick and his son Todd, who serves as an on-site manager for the Baker Group, which is a consulting firm. Nelson believes Todd Wick is doing an excellent job, but believes that situation could be viewed differently given the circumstances.
I just think that perception is reality, and I think that it would be appropriate for Ron to recuse himself from those discussions or votes, and I think the public would be appreciative of that.
During the meeting, there was an emphasis on trying to create stronger communication through the rest of the project, to include a joint meeting between county supervisors and the LEC Authority every 2 weeks.